Imagine a cold December night in 1773. The streets of Boston are filled with tension, the murmur of whispers in taverns, and the flickering light of lanterns. You stand at Griffin's Wharf, watching as dozens of men disguised as Mohawk Indians silently board 3 ships. Little do you know, you are about to witness a defining moment in history. This is the Boston Tea Party, a single act that would fuel the flames of revolution. The following images in this video have been altered and generated using AI technology. They are not exact replicas of historical events or people, but are used to provide a visual representation of what the events may have looked like. These images are intended solely for illustrative purposes, to help bring the story to life. Before we dive into the action, let's set the stage. The colonies were simmering with discontent. For years, Britain had imposed a series of taxes on goods like paper, glass, and most infamously, tea. The Tea Act of 1773, passed by the British Parliament, was the tipping point. It wasn't just about tea, it was about control. The act gave the British East India Company a monopoly on tea sales in the American colonies, undercutting local merchants and making British tea the only affordable option. The colonists saw this as an infringement on their rights. No taxation without representation became the rallying cry. Despite the Crown's attempts to assert its authority, the colonists were already tasting the bitterness of British rule. December 16, 1773, would go down in history. As night fell, over 5,000 people gathered at Old South Meeting House in Boston to decide the fate of the tea. Despite Governor Hutchinson's insistence that the tea be unloaded and taxed, a secret plan was already in motion. As the meeting ended, a group of around 60 men, disguised as Mohawk Indians, marched toward Griffin's Wharf. These patriots, later known as the Sons of Liberty, had a bold mission: destroy the tea before it could be taxed. Silently and with purpose, they boarded the ships Dartmouth, Eleanor, and Beaver, carrying 342 chests of tea worth nearly £10,000, fortune at the time. With axes and bare hands, they ripped open the tea crates, spilling their contents into the dark waters of the Boston harbor. There was no violence against the crew, and no property beyond the tea was damaged. It was a calculated and symbolic act of protest. The morning after the Boston Tea Party, Bostonians awoke to a harbor filled with floating tea leaves. While some colonists celebrated the event, British Crown was outraged. Parliament saw the Boston Tea Party as a direct challenge to its authority and wasted no time in responding. In 1774, the British passed the Coercive Acts, known to the colonists as the Intolerable Acts. Boston's port was closed until the lost tea was paid for, and the Massachusetts government was placed under direct British control. These measures were intended to punish and isolate Boston, but instead they galvanized the colonies. Outrage spread like wildfire, and soon other colonies rallied in support of Boston. The Boston Tea Party wasn't just a local act of rebellion. It was the match that lit the powder keg of revolution. In September 1774, representatives from the colonies met at the First Continental Congress in Philadelphia to discuss a unified response to the British. The seeds of the American Revolution had been sown. By 1775, tensions between the colonies and Britain erupted into full-scale conflict with the battles of Lexington and Concord. The Boston Tea Party, in many ways, symbolized the point of no return. It was no longer about taxes or tea. It was about independence. Today, the Boston Tea Party is remembered not just as an act of defiance, but as a foundational moment in American history. It represents the values of self-governance, resistance to tyranny, and the birth of American independence. The Sons of Liberty, once seen as radical troublemakers, are now regarded as patriots who stood up for the rights of their fellow colonists. Without the Boston Tea Party, the revolutionary spirit may have taken longer to ignite, or the colonies might not have unified as quickly against British rule. It is a story that reminds us that even the smallest acts can lead to monumental change. And that, my friends, is the story of how a protest over tea evolved into a revolution that changed the course of history. The Boston Tea Party was more than just a bold act of defiance. It was the catalyst for a nation's fight for freedom. If you enjoyed this dive into one of the most famous events in American history, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode of our historical exploration. Let's keep uncovering the stories that shaped our world. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.